All right.
Good evening.
Good evening. So, all right, perfect. I know we got some folks joining us online. We got a lot of folks out there today. So, some of them, I guess, have chosen not to be here, and the other ones are sick and not feeling good. So, but we'll continue anyway. That is your door. So keep Shirley in prayer. I've talked with Shirley yesterday. She's still got the flu. She's getting over it. She's on the off side of it. She's hoping to come Sunday, and then of course we had the funeral today for Brother Stout. So that was something we've done today, and been busy with that. And keep Steve Lonsky in prayer. Steve Lonsky's never sick, and he's sick and he's down. He's in bed. For him to be in bed for even a day or two is kind of out of normal. But I did talk to Barb. He seems to be getting back to a better position than he was earlier this morning. So it looks like this, he may be on the starting to push this thing through some. So open your Bible to Genesis chapter number 31. Genesis chapter number 31. All right. Hope everybody's getting ready for the storm coming in. So for those that attend prayer meeting on Saturday, we're going to right now tentatively plan on keeping it, but there's too much ice out there in the roads. We may have to cancel it. So. All right. Genesis chapter number 31. Sorry. So last week we ended where Jacob and Laban were getting ready to split apart. So let's open up here. Father, thank you for saying, give us, Lord. Open our hearts, Lord, to the Word of God, Lord. Lord God, help the ones that are out sick today, Lord God. I pray, Lord God, that you'll just do what you're going to do, Lord, with the people here, Father. We love you and thank you, Lord. Open our hearts. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. Anyway, so Jacob and Laban are getting ready to split. And Jacob's like, look, Laban, I'll take the not so good cattle and stuff like that. You can have the better stuff, and we'll go our ways. That's kind of where we ended. And Laban agreed to that. Remember, Laban deceived Jacob with Leah and Rachel, right? Because Jacob had worked 7 years for Rachel, and Laban ended up giving him Leah, and he had to work another 7 years for Rachel. So all in all, Jacob worked for him for quite a while. So we're going to pick it up in chapter 31. It says, and he heard the words of Laban's son, saying, Jacob hath taken away all that was our father's, and of that which was our father's hath he gotten all this glory. Verse 2, and Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him as before. So Laban's son had made a comment along the lines of saying, man, Jacob got all the cattle, all the stuff, and he's taken everything, and he's taken everything that basically belongs to us, he's saying. And because the Bible tells us stuff Jacob had, it kept multiplying, it kept increasing, it kept growing. So now there's some jealousy here. Just notice it said Laban, verse 2, and Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him as before. So, which means that Laban now was not as liking of Jacob as what he was to begin with. Number 1 in your worksheet, verses 1 through 2. Laban's countenance had changed towards Jacob. True or false? True. All right. Now, if you notice in your worksheet there, you got 2 full pages, 2 full sides. Instead of just one side a little bit, we actually have 2 full sides today. So we got a lot to cover in here. Verse number 3. And the Lord said unto Jacob, return unto the land of thy fathers and to thy kindred, and I will be with thee. So Jacob notices that there's a tension there. When you see tension in a situation, you need to remove yourself from that tension. You need to pull away from it. Or if you're able to. If you know that something's on the horizon, it's getting ready to be bad or difficult or frustrating, start praying for that ahead of time. Lord, give me wisdom how to get through that. It's like if we have, if I know we got problems between people in the church and I know we got to deal with that, start praying for that. Lord, help us to get through that. Help hearts to be open. Help people to be ready. Help me to have the right words to say, stuff like that. So we have to deal with that stuff. And this is what Jacob and Laban, they're seeing the problem. So God tells Jacob, look, man, just get out and return. Number 2 on your worksheet, and the Lord said unto Jacob, blank unto the land of thy fathers. Return would be the word for that. Correct. And we're going to read verses 4 through 7. And Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field unto his flock. So Jacob's out with the flock. He gets his 2 wives. Notice he didn't have the 2 concubines come. He called Leah and Rachel, his 2 wives, the daughters of Laban. All right, to his flock, and said unto them, I see your father's countenance, that it is not toward me as before, but the God of my father hath been with me. So Jacob's explaining this to his wives, which of course Laban's daughters said, look, man, your dad's demeanor, your dad's countenance has changed towards me. It's made me, he's getting angry with me, he's upset. We got a situation here, we got to leave, you know. So he's preparing his family for that departure. And Jacob goes on and tells his wives, he said, and the God of my father hath been with me. Because God had been blessing everything that Jacob did. And so everything Jacob touched multiplied. And Laban saw that. Laban wanted that blessing that Jacob was getting. So he was having trouble with letting him go. Verse number 6. And ye know that with all my power I have served your father. What does that mean? With all my power I have served your father.
He put his heart into everything he had.
Put his heart into it, gave him everything he had. In other words, he did a great job for Laban. He worked above and beyond and more than he ever could know. And verse 7 says, and your father hath deceived me and changed my wages 10 times. But God suffered him not to hurt me. In other words, God allowed him not to hurt me. So Jacob's telling his wife, said, look, man, I've worked for your father, and I've worked for you, I've served your father with all my heart. I've worked for him. He's changed my wages. He's deceived me 10 times. Now, if this was in the United States workforce changes wages for work, and there would be some lawsuits going on. There'd be some HR departments getting involved with that. But we see here that Laban's wages had been changed, or Laban had changed Jacob's wages 10 times. So it says Jacob, verse number 3 on your worksheet, 4 through 7. Jacob takes his wives and tells them that their father was fair to him. True or false?
False.
That would be false. Correct. Verse number 8. If he said thus, the speckled shall be thy wage, cattle bear speckled. And if he said thus, the ring shake shall be all thy hire, then bear all the cattle the ring shake. Thus God hath taken away the cattle of your father and given them to me. Remember in the last chapter, Laban told Jacob to take all the cattle, all the speckled, all the ring shank, in other words, all the ones that kind of were not pure, take them. And notice it says, thus God had taken away the cattle of your father and given them to me. So there was a lot more of the ring shank than the bad ones than there was the good ones, and Jacob got all them. So now, like anything else, we got 2 people and God starts blessing one, jealousy tends to raise in the other one. And that's what's happening here. Laban's starting to get jealous because he sees that Jacob's getting blessed, right? So on your worksheet here, number 4, Jacob is telling his wives what was said between him and Abraham. True or false?
False.
Why is that false?
Because he was talking to Laban, not Abraham.
Ah, there you go. So that'd be false because Jacob was talking to Laban, not Abraham. So see that? Yeah, I was throwing them in there a little bit. Verse number 10. And it came to pass at the time that the cattle conceived, that I lifted up mine eyes and saw in a dream, and behold, the rams which leaped upon the cattle were ring-shanked, speckled, and grizzled. So Jacob had a dream, and it came to pass at the time the cattle conceived, I lifted up my eyes and saw in a dream. So in other words, the cattle multiplied, right? And they kept growing. Number 5 on your worksheet, Jacob had a dream. The rams were ring-shanked, dirty, speckled, or grizzled.
Ring-shaped, speckled, and grizzled.
There's 3. You got 3 out of 4 answers on that one. Right, ring-shaped, speckled, and grizzled. So dirty is the only one that's not the correct answer.
Oh.
So on multiple choice, you can be more than one. So on these, you have to go with as many as apply, right? As many as you can find that would go with that.
Dirty.
Huh?
Dirty, unclean.
Yeah, well, yeah, true, dirty and clean. Dirty and clean, but yeah, ring-shanked, speckled, and grizzled, right? Verse 11. And the angel of God spake unto me in a dream, saying, Jacob, and I said, here am I. So the angel of God speaking to him, verse 12, and he said, lift up now thine eyes and see all the rams which leap upon the cattle are ring-shanked, speckled, and grizzled. For I have seen all that Laban doth unto thee, or doeth unto thee. I am the God of Bethel, where thou anointest a pillar, and where thou vowedest a vow unto me. Now arise, get thee out from this land, and return unto the land of thy kindred. So here's what God's saying. God's saying, look, Jacob, I'm giving you all these cattle. All this cattle's multiplying. You're getting large amounts because I know what Laban did to you. So in other words, Jacob took the loss from Laban, but God rewarded him with much. See how that works? So like in the Christian walk, people are going to rip us off, they're going to cheat us, they're going to steal from us. Sometimes they're going to hurt us, we're going to have to take the loss on that. But you know what? We take the loss because at the end, God rewards it. And in his time, and he rewards it much more. Because the cost and the value of this cattle was far more than the wages that Jacob got cheated out of. So in other words, Jacob ended up being a very wealthy, very rich man. That's what ended up happening here. And I like that verse 13. It says, I am the God of Bethel. So the same God that we're trying to make sure stays in our church. We've invited in there. We've got doors open. We keep seeking him daily on that. So it says, I am the God of Bethel, where thou anointest the pillar, and where thou vowedest a vow unto me. Now arise, get thee from this land, and return unto the land of thy kindred. God said, look, get out of here. He's like, your time here is done. Right? Sometimes God puts us in certain places for such a time as this, right? For certain seasons, certain tasks, certain jobs. So, number 6 in your worksheet, verse 11 through 13, Jacob was told to return to the land of thy
Kindred.
kindred is correct.
Kindred.
Kindred.
Oh.
Kindred.
Did I say it wrong or something?
No.
What did you say?
That last word in there.
No, it's kindred. What is it? Kindred. Okay.
Yeah.
I just spelled it wrong. Sorry.
That's right, no worries. Verse number 14, and Rachel and Leah answered and said unto him, is there yet any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not counted of him strangers? For he has sold us, and hath quite devoured also our money. So what's Rachel and Leah here saying?
They were sold to Jacob for wives.
Yeah, what's that, Les? Well, they're asking, right? Because they're asking a question there. So Leah and Rachel are saying, is there any portion of our inheritance for us in our father's house? No, there's nothing there for us. Our father sold us, he devoured all of our money. So in other words, when Jacob's telling Leah and Rachel it's time to leave, they're basically saying, what's left for us here? So, why would we stay? Why would we try to fight that? Because our father obviously wants nothing to do with us. He didn't give us an inheritance, didn't do this, didn't do that. So, he got rid of, he squandered all the money away. So they're like, what is there for us? That's what they're saying here, verse 16. For all the riches which God hath taken from our father, that is ours, and our children's, now then, whatsoever God hath said unto thee, do. Rachel and Leah are looking at it and saying, look, all the riches God took away from Laban and gave to you, so there's nothing left to our father's place, basically, And they were kind of saying that their dad didn't care about them because, he sold them and all that kind of stuff like that. There's no inheritance for them. So if they were ones that followed the money, they were smarter to stay with Jacob, right? Just because Jacob had the money at that point. So number 7 on your worksheet, 14 through 16. Leah and Rachel were describing how they still had inheritance and value with their father. True or false? False. All right. Verse 18. And he carried away all his cattle and all his goods which he had gotten, the cattle of his getting, which he had gotten in Pin-Aram, for to go to Isaac his father in the land of Canaan. Verse 17. Then Jacob rose up and set his sons and his wives upon camels, and he carried away all his cattle and all his good which he had gotten, the cattle of his getting which he had gotten in Pin-Aram, for to go to Isaac his father in the land of Canaan. Verse 17 through 18. Jacob delays his leaving. True or false? False, that's correct, because he got up and went, didn't he? Verse number 19. And Laban went to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the images that were her father's. Okay. So we see that this whole family has nothing but deception going on, right? We're going to see another big case of deception take place in just a minute. But Rachel, Laban's daughter, when Laban went out to shear his sheep, she went into his tent and stole his images. Now, what would those images be? We're going to find out as we read through it, but I mean, we'll get back to it when we get a verse, but see if anybody has a guess.
Things of the Lord.
Things of the Lord, okay, we got that. What other ideas?
Pictures. I mean,
All right. So keep this verse in mind, or keep the images. What was that, Les? Yeah, images of what?
Leah and
Okay, maybe.
her kids.
Okay, the images of their kids, maybe. Well, that's good. These are good ideas. Let's see as we get through the verses. Well,
A total of 9 or 10 kids, maybe something.
maybe. So we're going to find out in just a minute. So as we go through there, it's good. I like the thought process here. So verse number 9. No. So Laban went to shear sheep, verse 19, and Rachel had stolen the images that were her father's, verse 20. And Jacob stole away unawares to Laban, the Syrian, in that he told him not that he fled. What does it mean that Jacob stole away? Okay, he left, but left without telling, right? In other words, he didn't go to Laban and say, hey, I'm going. He just took his family and took off. You ever have anybody that you talk to, you go to fight, you go to meet up with them, whatever, or they're supposed to do something for you, you go there, they're gone, they're just so that's what happened here. So number 10 in your worksheet, number 9 in your worksheet, verses 19 to 20, Rachel stole blank, food or images. Jacob stole unawares or cattle. Unawares, okay. I figured I'd have a little fun with that one. Verse number 21. So he fled with all that he had, and he rose up and passed over the river and set his face toward the mount of Gilead. So Jacob's gone, taking his family, and they're heading down towards Gilead. Number 10 in your worksheet, verse 21. Jacob set his face toward the Mount Moriah, Carmel, Gilead, or of Olives? Gilead. All right. Number 11, verse 22. And it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob was fled. So it took 3 days. Jacob had been gone 3 days. It took 3 days for the word to get to Laban. It was told to Laban on the third day that Jacob had left. All right. And he took his brother with him. And he took his brother with him and pursued after him 7 days' journey. And they overtook him in the mountain of Gilead. So Jacob had gone 3 days, and it took Laban 7 days to catch up to him because they had to go those 3 days plus another 4 to catch up to him wherever they were. So because in those 3 days, Jacob was already 3 days ahead. So yeah, it took Laban and his company 7 days to catch up to Jacob and his family there on the trip. Now, why do you think Laban's going after Jacob? I mean, they had already kind of agreed that he could take him and go. So why do you think Laban's going after him?
Because Jacob went unaware and he didn't get to say goodbye to anybody.
Okay. Does it seem reasonable that you chase down a whole family for 7 days just because you didn't say goodbye?
No, not necessarily. But
I get it in the Bible, but maybe these images had something to do with it. Remember, Rachel stole some images, so maybe these are important, or maybe Laban wanted to show his authority, or try to do something. But we're going to see as we get through.
Maybe it must have been family values or something.
Yeah, maybe.
Some importance.
Yeah, something of importance to Laban, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't make a trip like that for nothing unless it's something of value. So we're going to see here, verse 23. Oh, sorry, we need that. Number 11 on your worksheet, 22 through 23. Jacob had been gone 7 days, and it took Laban 3 days to catch up to him. True or false?
Oh.
False. Why is that false?
That was 3 and then
Jacob had,
Seven?
yes, I got the 3 and 7 backwards.
I've done seven, should have been 3 and.
Yep, took Laban 7 days, all right, good. So you have to switch those two around.
Yes.
Verse 24. Now, notice that God intervenes, and God came to Laban the Syrian in a dream by night and said unto him, Take heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. God's basically telling Laban, look, I know you're angry with Jacob, but you better watch what you say to him. You better watch how you treat him. And so when God speaks to you in a dream like that, it's a pretty serious situation, you know. So if I was Laban, I'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna word what I say very, very carefully, because I don't want to get God very angry with me, right? Number 12 in your worksheet. God warns Laban in a dream during a daytime nap to watch how he speaks to Jacob. True or false? What's false about that?
He dreamt at night.
Yep, right. And he lifted his eye, verse 24. And God's, in a dream by night. Absolutely. All right, verse 25. Yep. So verse 25. Then Laban overtook Jacob. What does it mean he overtook Jacob?
He caught up to him.
Caught up to him, right? And so he overtook him. No, he caught up to him. So now Jacob and his camp have got stopped. Now you figure Jacob's got, well, at this point we're still, 10 or 11 children? So we haven't got to the last 1 or 2 yet. So we're at like 10 children, I think, last week.
Yeah.
He's got them, and the Bible says took their wives too, so some of them were already married at this time. He's got his servants, his cattle, so it's not like they can move 5 miles an hour. I mean, they got to be moving somewhat pretty slow, and even kind of at a steady pace. But it takes a while. You got to stop, get water from time to time. So Laban overtook him, catches up to him, overtakes him. Verse 26. And Laban said to Jacob, What hast thou done, that thou hast stolen away unawares to me, and carried away my daughters as captives, taken with the sword? So we're starting out, Laban's basically Jacob, well, why are you deceiving me? This comes from the great deceiver himself, right? So one thing deceivers don't like are being deceived. It's interesting how that works, right? So now it's not just his daughters in that, because there's more to it than just this. But Laban says unto Jacob, What hast thou done, that thou hast stolen away unawares to me, and carried away my daughters as captives, taken with the sword? Now, they know it's not true, because Jacob worked for them girls. They were his wives. He was allowed to take them. Him and Laban had agreed to split, so Laban's just kind of making a mountain out of a molehill here. So he's exaggerating the situation, right? Number 13 on your worksheet, this is just a statement. Laban is now feeling like he was deceived by Jacob. Verse 27. Wherefore didst thou flee away secretly and steal away from me, and didst not tell me that I might have sent thee away with mirth and with songs and tabret and with harp? And then verse 20, and hast not suffered me to kiss my sons and my daughters. Thou hast now done foolishly in so doing. So Laban's like, look, man, I would have thrown you a party. I'd have kissed my family goodbye. But Jacob had close to 20 years with Laban. And not once did Laban keep his word. Not once did Laban do what he was supposed to do. He kept deceiving him all the way through. So what makes Jacob think that Laban would have done the right thing here? Plus, Jacob knew his countenance had changed, right? He knew there was tension between the two of them. And when tension arises, sometimes frustration and then could lead to death at some point, right? I mean, we've seen that happen in the Bible here. Plus, not only that, but God told Jacob, go. So Jacob had to go. So Laban's catching up to him and going up there. So number 14 on your worksheet. Laban is not rebuking Jacob, true or false? Based on what we said, the answer to that, Laban is not rebuking Jacob. That would be false, because Laban is rebuking Jacob. In other words, he's rebuking him. Why have you taken my daughters? Why have you taken that? So I couldn't give him a party. I couldn't throw a party for him. I like how he said, that I might have sent thee away with mirth and songs and tabret and harp. He's trying to make himself look really good while making Jacob look really bad.
He's putting on the show for the brethren he was with.
His brethren he's with, and maybe even his daughters too, right? Because maybe he's trying to sway his daughters to
show him that he cares.
Yeah. So, which we know, and we're going to find out the true reason why Laban's here in just a minute as we get through this. Verse 29. And it is in the power of my hand to do you hurt. In other words, Laban says, look, I can hurt you. I don't know what all kind of hurt. He said, but the God of your father spake unto me yesternight, saying, take thou heed that thou speak not Jacob, either good or bad. So in other words, Laban was like, look, it's in my power to bring harm to you, but your God told me to leave you alone. So, how cool would that be? I'm sure Jacob inside kind of smirked a little bit, you know? I mean, and Jacob might have been a little bit intimidated by Laban too all those years, you know? We just don't know. Number 15 in your worksheet, verse 29. Laban told Jacob that he had the power to beat, love, kiss, or hurt Jacob. Hurt Jacob, correct.
Hey, Pastor, do we know anywhere did Jacob think that he was being pursued by Laban?
No,
He didn't ever-
no, Jacob would not have known that. So let's see. Yeah, no, Jacob did not know at this point that he was being pursued by Laban. You know, because Jacob's eyes looked at him and Laban had an agreement. He left. God told him to go, so he got up and left. So Jacob, just doing what he's basically told to do, what he had the agreement with Laban to do. It's Laban who's changed the terms of the arrangement here. Verse 30. And now, though thou wouldest needs be gone, because thou sore longest after thy father's house, yet wherefore thou hast stolen my gods. Small g. So, in other words, Laban's telling Jacob, look, you've been longing to go, you've been longing to get away from me, because you've been longing to go back to your father's house, but yet therefore you've stolen my gods, which would be those images that we talked about earlier. They were idol gods. So that's what they stole, was the idol gods. That's what he's after. Laban was, number 16 in your worksheet, Laban was asking, where are his, what's the answer to that? Gods. G-O-D, small g, O-D, apostrophe S. What's the difference between a small g and a big G when it comes to the word God? Yep. You ever see somebody like write a motion, type something talking about God Almighty, and they put the small g on there? That happens a lot of times. It frustrates me too.
But
Yep.
I have to remember the name of it.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, if you ever type it on a Microsoft Word document, you type in God, it's usually always gonna put a small g on there. You gotta go there and put a capital on yourself, unless you do a spell check. But even if it's like an autofill, it'll always put a small g. And try it on your text it, yes, sir.
It seems like he would go through to go pursue his God.
Yeah.
He goes through quite a bit to pursue that God.
Yeah.
His God, the material.
Yep.
I mean, the material is what do we do with this? I mean, this world. Look at the God that we pursue, no matter who's in our way.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So Brother Chuck's relating how determined Laban was to go after his gods, and that's all he's after. This is really his gods, and to make himself look good for anyone else. He care less about anything else. But he goes through all his work to pursue his gods, to find his idols. And if we as Christians do that, right, we get to pursue our God regardless of the situation, we see great and mighty things happen, wouldn't we, brother? If we can pursue our God that way,
But I mean, the world is pursuing their God.
Oh yeah, they're pursuing their gods.
No matter
Absolutely.
what cost.
Yep, they're pursuing their pride, they're pursuing the abortions and all that stuff. Forgive me, my throat's been a little dry up lately.
Pastor, so God can talk to Laban,
He talked to him in a dream, yeah, sure, yeah.
but in the meantime, Laban has idols. That is his gods. He didn't have anything to do with really God.
Correct. Well, and you notice Laban told Jacob, the God of your father.
Right.
Yeah. So all God did, I mean, listen, these people knew who the God of the Bible was. They knew, they may not have always believed on him, but they knew who he was when he spoke to him. They still had somewhat of a fear of God because he spoke to them in a dream. When God said, didn't he with, who was the king there when Abraham lied about Sarah being his sister? Told that king, don't you dare touch her because you touch her and your whole palace is gonna die, basically. You know, that king there didn't believe in the God and their God either. Which you would think that they would, because they know who he is. But they had those hard hearts, right? They were more focused on the gods they created themselves. I think they're more focused on that, yes, sir.
Sometimes don't you think the Lord is saying, why are you serving those idols? To believers, to us. Why are you serving those idols?
Yeah,
That's what you said, I'm your God.
yeah, amen.
You know, we got idols in our life
We do.
to serve.
Yep.
And he's asking us, why are you serving?
Yep.
You say you love me.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Verse 31, and Jacob answered and said to Laban, because I was afraid, for I said, peradventure thou wouldst take by force thy daughters from me. Jacob was afraid, and Jacob thought that Laban would steal his daughter, his wives away from him and keep them, and that's why Jacob said that he had left, all right? But that's not the reason why Laban's come after. We're going to see there in just a minute. Number 17 in your worksheet. 31, Jacob said he left because he was afraid. True or false? True, that is correct. All right, verse 32. With whomsoever thou findest thy gods, let him not live. Before our brother, discern now what is thine with me, and take it to thee. For Jacob knew not that Rachel had stolen him. So Jacob's like, look, man, I was afraid you're going to steal your daughters, but setting that aside, these idols that you're talking about, I got no clue what you're talking about, and if you can search whatever you want. If you find them, whoever took them will be put to death. Now, the Bible says Jacob didn't know that Rachel had stolen them. So, but that's what Jacob's saying. He's like, look, Laban, you go. Basically, Jacob's a man having some integrity at this point, saying, look, I haven't taken your stuff. I've not stolen anything from you, and I'm almost kind of offended that you're accusing me of that. So go search my stuff and find it. You tell me what's yours and what's not. Right? That's what he's saying. And he's like, look, if they're in there, well, that man will be put to death. So, number 18 in your worksheet. Jacob tells Laban that whosoever stole his gods, that person was not to be put to death. True or false? False. Correct. All right, verse 33. Second. There's a lot going on in this chapter here. I'm telling you, you can't make this stuff up, praise the Lord. You know this had to be true, and this had to be from God. Verse 33. And Laban went in unto Jacob's tent, and into Leah's tent, and into the two maidservants' tents, but he found them not. Then he went out of Leah's tent and entered into Rachel's tent. So notice you got Leah with a tent, you got the two maidservants with a tent, you got Rachel's with a tent, so Jacob wasn't living with any of them at the time. He might have looked tired of all you women, I'm going to go live in my own tent. You know?
I'm going to be alone.
Yeah, I'm going to be alone for a while. So Laban now, he's gone through all these tents, and so he found nothing, and he entered into Rachel's tent. What do you think is going to happen? Without reading ahead, what do you think is going to happen?
Some good there.
One of them is probably going to get pregnant.
I don't know. Well, they're looking for the idol gods. So, verse 34. So now Rachel and Leah know what's going on too, because they know that their dad's looking for these images, right? Verse 34. Now Rachel had taken the images and put them into camel's furniture and sat upon them. And Laban searched the tent, but found them not. So Rachel had taken these idols and she put them underneath the seat of her saddle, and she's sitting on it. Can you imagine that poor camel guy has an itch in his back like that? So she's hiding them, right? She's sitting on them, thinking, oh man, my dad's not going to search through any of that stuff. Number 19, verse 33 through 34. Laban did not find the images in Leah or Rachel's tent. True or false? That would be correct. Verse 35. And she said to her father, let it not displease my Lord that I cannot rise up before thee, for the custom of women is upon me. And he searched, but found not the images. What does that mean? So Rachel's saying, look, I can't, Dad, or Lord, call her father Lord. Lord, if it doesn't displease you, understand the custom of women is upon me and I can't stand up. What does that mean, the custom of women?
Well, I can think of two different things.
Okay?
either pregnant or at that time.
It's that time. So the custom of women would be the monthly process that women go through. So custom of women, she couldn't get up, be messy, whatever. But so she wasn't able to get up because the custom of women had come upon her. And I'm sure her dad's probably seen some of that stuff before. He's like, you know what? Just stay there. You don't have to worry about getting off. So it says here, and he searched but found not the images. So number 20 in your worksheet, Rachel was sitting on the idols and told her father she could not rise off the camel because she was pregnant. True or false? False. All right. So that makes some of this stuff pretty easy for you.
You see, there's one thing worse than a thief.
Okay. Hold on. There's one thing worse than a thief?
Pregnant.
It's a liar.
Oh, it's a liar, yeah.
You're stealing the lie about it.
What is camel's fur?
What would be like the saddlebags, the stuff that goes around the front of the camel? So,
Mary.
What, a couch or something?
Now that one, I
a couch on a camel. That'd be kind of cool to recline on as you sit back and recline like that. Yeah.
she's back in there.
I think you know.
What's that word I'm trying?
Amen.
All
All right, so here we go. All right, verse 36. Verse 36. And Jacob was wroth and chode with Laban. And Jacob answered and said to Laban, what is my trespass? What is my sin that thou hast so hotly pursued after me? That's the reason that Laban went after him, was to find his idols. Because Jacob's like, he searched it, you couldn't find it, so what's my sin? What's my trespass that you had to so hotly come after me? Meaning, Jacob and his crew was walking, and Laban and his crew was running, or, on their horses or whatever. So, verse 37. Whereas thou hast searched all my stuff, what hast thou found of all thy household stuff? Set it here before my brethren and thy brethren, that they may judge betwixt us both. So Jacob's like, go get all the stuff that we took from you and set it out here in front of all of our people right now. Well, Laban couldn't find nothing, right? So he doesn't set it out. He's like, well, let the brethren judge. Verse number 21, your worksheet. 36 and 37, Jacob berates Laban, asking him to set his stuff before his wives, children, brethren, or servants. Brethren is what the verse says, right? Okay. Verse 38. This 20 years, so Jacob has served him 20 years. This 20 years have I been with thee. Thy ewes and thy she-goats have not cast their young, and the rams of thy flock have I not eaten. That which was torn of beast I brought not unto thee. I bear the loss of it. Of my hand did thou require it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. So here's some more details of Jacob working. There's what Jacob's saying is like, he's telling Laban, so we're going to start here in verse 38. He said, where it says, thy ewes and thy she-goats have not cast their young, and the rams of thy flock have I not eaten. In other words, Jacob's like, look, your cattle stuff, I'm not taking any of your cattle, I'm not taking any away, I'm not eating any of them. And verse 39, and those which were eaten by the beast, I took those. I took the loss on that, right? I bear the loss of it. In other words, I had to pay for it. So now my hand did thou require. In other words, Laban made him pay for the ones that got tore up by the beast because Jacob was supposed to be taking care of them, supposed to be watching. So Laban kept continually beating or taking advantage of Jacob, stealing from him, lying to him, changing his wages, and he blamed Jacob for everything that happened with his animals, but yet he wanted all the blessing from him. See that? So Jacob's calling him out on that now. Jacob's like, look, man, I'm taking a loss, by your own hand. Or my own hand did thou require it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. So an animal was eaten by, if a sheep was eaten by a lion or tiger or bear, oh my, whatever it is, Come on, guys, we can laugh a little bit. Lion, tiger, bear, oh my. Make sure this crowd's awake.
That we get it.
Huh?
That we get it.
Yeah, there you go. So Jacob got charged for those. Now Laban probably pulled out. Okay, well, three goats got eaten this week. That's $100 a piece. I'll keep it $300, and here's the rest of your money. It was something like that. So everything that happened, he was blaming Jacob for. So Jacob called him out. Verse number 22 in your worksheet, 38 and 39. Jacob is telling Laban all the loss that he has taken, so Laban could get the gain. True or false? That would be true, right? Verse number 40. Thus I was in the day the drought consumed me, and the frost by night, and my sleep departed from mine eyes. Thus I have been 20 years in thy house. I served thee 14 years for thy 2 daughters, 6 years for thy cattle, and thou hast changed my wages 10 times. Verse 40, thus I was in the day the drought consumed me. In other words, Jacob's like, look, I worked. I didn't have a lot to drink. I didn't get a whole lot of sleep because I'm tending to these cattle of yours. I had to work 14 years for the 2 wives that I got, and I had to work another 6 years for the cattle. And during those 20 years, you changed my wages 10 times.
We docked him 10 times.
Huh?
We docked him 10
Yeah.
times.
I guarantee you, he changed his wages shorter.
Yeah.
Every time. In other words, I'm sure there was no time here that Laban increased his wages, gave a raise. He took away from him, And so basically, Laban is really making Jacob a slave.
Yeah.
Is basically what happened. But Laban's not stupid. He knew that God had his hand on him, on Jacob. He knew that God was blessing Jacob, so he wanted to keep it there. But Laban liked to have his thumb there. He was in charge. He's like, I'm the boss. I'm the man. So, do we do verse 41? Yeah, thus have I been 20 years in thy house. Yeah, okay. So number 23 in your worksheet, 40 to 41, shows how unloving and unkind Laban was to Jacob. True or false? That would be true, right? Because Laban was not loving to Jacob. Okay, verse 42. Except the God of my father, the God of Abraham, that the fear of Isaac had been with me. Surely thou hast sent me away now empty. God hath seen my affliction and the labor of my hands and rebuked thee yesternight. It sounds like Jacob, for the first time, is starting to stand up for himself. Because remember, Jacob's been kind of timid, kind of doing what everybody tells him to. And Jacob tells Laban, had it not been for God, you would have sent me away from here with nothing. In other words, Laban would have taken his wives from him, taken all the cattle, and told Jacob to leave as he came in with absolutely nothing. So luckily God protected Jacob. Now Jacob left not only with everything, but it kept multiplying. So Jacob's standing up for himself here. We got to give it to him. He's finally doing it. Number 24 on your worksheet, verse 42. God has seen mine blank affliction and the blank of my hands, and blank thee yesternight. Rebuked. So your answers are affliction, labor, and rebuked. Okay, verse 43. And Laban answered and said unto Jacob, these daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and these cattle are my cattle, and all that thou seest is mine. And what can I do this day unto these, my daughters, or unto their children, which they have born? Or Laban's like, all these, they all came from me, which his daughters came, kids came, his old daughters, cattle. And Laban's like, what can I do on you? But basically, if I destroy you or destroy them or whatever, it's like take care of my own stuff, get rid of my own stuff. So he's asking basically, what can I do about that? Verse number 25 in your worksheet, verse 43. Laban realizes that everything that Jacob had, I forgot the word had, that Jacob had come for him, and how can he destroy any of it? True or false? Sure. All right, verse 44. Now therefore come, let us make a covenant, I and thou, and let it be for a witness between me and thee. And Jacob took a stone and set it up for a pillar. And Jacob said unto his brother, gather stones, and they took stones and made a heap, and they did eat there upon the heap. So Laban's like, look, let's make a covenant. Jacob's like, all right, that's fine, we'll make a covenant. Because covenants, it doesn't matter how deceptive you were, covenants were something that just wasn't broken. Because they were usually sealed with life. In other words, if it was broken, the person that broke it usually ended up dying for it, right? We saw that with Rahab, right? Rahab with Joshua. If she had told the enemy where the spies were, then they were going to kill her, right? If she cattle, remember? So then Sunday school we talked about that. So covenant was something that was very Very serious. They took it, gathered stones, built it up, 8, verse 26, excuse me. Number 26 in your worksheet, 44 through 46. Jacob and Laban made a covenant, and Jacob tells his servants to gather stones. True or false? Why is it false?
He told his brethren.
Correct. So, yep. So Jacob and Laban made a covenant. Jacob tells his brethren to gather the stones. So false is the correct answer. They didn't tell his servants, told his brethren. Verse 47. And Laban called it, this talking about the pillar that was set up. And Laban called it Jagar-Sahadutha, and Jacob called it Gilead. So Laban called this great big long word, Jacob called it the smaller word. I put on your worksheet, verse number 27. Jacob's name for the pillar was much harder to pronounce than Laban's. True or false? So that would be false, right? So I put true on my worksheet, but that was supposed to be false.
You tricked yourself?
I did, I tricked myself on that one. So, but could you imagine calling that building Jagar-Sahadutha? It's easy, man. Just call it Gilead. You know, we know what to call it Gilead. Verse 48. And Laban said, "This heap is a witness between me and thee this day." Therefore was the name of it called Gilead. The heap, the pillar, the stones that were all there, that was a witness between me and them. Verse 49. And Mizpah, for he said, "The Lord watch between me and thee when we are absent from one another. If thou shalt afflict my daughters, or if thou shalt take other wives besides my daughters, no man is with us. See, God is a witness betwixt me and thee." What's he saying here? No man is a witness between us. So what's Laban telling Joshua or Jacob here?
Nobody can see what's going on, just you, me, and God.
Okay, all right, that's one way too. But think of the accountability process here, right? So, in other words, they made a covenant, they made theirs, and Laban's going to be here, Jacob's going to be over here, and nobody's going to be able to see which one's going to actually hold the covenant. So if Jacob was to afflict his daughters or take other wives besides those, who's going to tell Laban about it? You know, there's no man around here to tell him. So God has to be the witness. In other words, they're allowing God to hold each one of them accountable for the covenant. So if we break, we got to deal with God directly, is what they're saying. That's kind of what's happening here. All right. Number 28, 48 to 50. Only man, God, Satan, Abraham is witness betwixt me and thee. Only God, right? So there's no other people around for witness. Only God is. They made that covenant at this point. God is there. He's the witness of the covenant. He's what's going to hold them accountable. Right? Verse 51. And Laban said to Jacob, "Behold this heap, and behold this pillar which I have cast betwixt me and thee. This heap be witness, and the pillar be witness, that I will not pass over this heap to thee, and thou shalt not pass over this heap, for this pillar unto me for harm." Laban's telling Jacob, this pillar, this heap is here. I'm not going to pass over to you. You're not going to pass over to me to cause harm to one another. In other words, we're going to part in peace right here. We're going to leave things as they are. Jacob, you go your way. I'm going to go my way, and we're going to part in peace. So the countenance is kind of changing back, I would say. Laban still never found his gods, right? We'll see what happens. We'll see if we find them in the next chapter. But at this point, Rachel still lied to him. So, it just goes on with the family heritage, right? Lying and deceiving. Number 29. They were to only cross over the heap to hurt one another. True or false? That'd be false. Now, because it says here, "shall not pass over this heap and this pillar unto me for harm." So maybe if they needed to exchange, like maybe Jacob could go back that way at one time if he wasn't going to create any harm to Laban. If Jacob needed to take one of the daughters to see their father or something in the future. I don't know. But this was primarily for harm. They couldn't cross over one another to hurt one another. right? It's over and done with. They're going in peace at this point. Verse number 53. The God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge betwixt us. And Jacob sware by the fear of his father Isaac. Jacob agreed to the covenant. Jacob, all right, listen, God will hold us accountable for this. Verse 30, number 30 in your worksheet. Verse 53. Jacob sware by the love of his father. True or false?
True.
Sure?
Just
I
for
got
fear.
Jacob swears by the love of his blank, and then true or false.
Oh, yeah, try. So I put two things in there. Jacob sware by the love of his what?
For fear.
Right, but, yeah, so it's supposed to be, the fear of his father, right? So I tried to put two answers in there and I kind of messed it up. But, so the answer to that would be false, right? Jacob sware by the fear of his father. So the answer would be false in that, but the blank would be father. So, all right, verse 54. Then Jacob offered sacrifice upon the mount and called his brother to eat bread. And they did eat bread, and they did and tarried all night in the mount. And early in the morning Laban rose up and kissed his sons and his daughters and blessed them. And Laban departed and returned unto his place. So they made the covenant, made the altar. Laban spent the night. They got up early in the morning, or Laban got up early in the morning, kissed everybody goodbye, and took off. Number 31, your worksheet, 54 through 55. Jacob offers sacrifices and Laban leaves in peace. True or false? That would be true. A lot went on in that chapter, huh?
Yeah.
Huh?
We were busy.
Yeah, they were a busy chapter, right? And a lot, still more deception going on. Deception's not done yet.
We got it wrong.
You know, this whole family bloodline from Abraham all the way down has deception all in it. We're gonna see it more as we go through.
Different than what's going on today.
True. But I'll tell you, there was a lot of stuff in this one chapter today. I mean, a lot of stuff in there. And so now my question is, what happened to is this the end of the gods? Looking for the gods? Does Rachel just keep them, or do they get revealed somewhere along the way? So we're going to have to see as we go through this what happened with that. So it's interesting because at some point, I'm sure Jacob's going to find out that Rachel had taken those idols.
Someone's going to squeal.
Huh?
Someone's going to squeal.
Yeah. Somebody's going to squeal. Well, plus the Bible tells us, Numbers 32:23, the last part says, and be sure your sin will find you out.
Either that or the items are gonna be revealed. They're gonna be out.
Yeah, somewhere. Or maybe she sells them at a yard sale somewhere. I mean, look, hey, I found these.
It might still be in the camera, maybe grab a go look.
So, all right, if there's anybody watching us online, we'll catch you later.